across the entire highway, as we call it, is that they were pumping up for the APNU votes ranging from 50 additional votes all the way to 153 votes. And in several boxes and in areas that they perceive as their stronghold, they were pumping it up. But in pumping it up, they were pushing it beyond the number of legal electors in that area. So they were creating phantom voters for the process. But when you really drill down beyond the spreadsheet, you realize that the spreadsheet had no source document. It was not sourced from a statement of poll. It was a figment of someone's imagination in some back room somewhere on the second floor of that Hatfield Street building.
And say it's not cutting you, but this is where I want to also put to the public, because this is being peddled and persons are running away with the idea that that GECOM was stormed by members of the PPPC. That is not so. It was after these discrepancies came out that objections were made, not only by the PPPC, but all of the other small parties, even the international observers who were also in the room and were privy to everything that was transpiring there. And they're running away with the idea. It's being peddled that we stormed. This is why we disrupted the session. This is why it came to a halt. That is absolutely untrue. That is inaccurate information, and these are myself, Sasenarine Singh, and
Nalinie Singh.
We were all present along with
We were
the
all
observers.
in the room.
We were all present in the room. We were participating. We saw what happened. We knew what happened, and it's inaccurate to go and say that it was stormed. It was that the PPPC was the reason for the disruption and the halting. Absolutely not.
Well, just to back up, on March 18, the Commonwealth issued a statement, and they basically said in their second point, and this is what the Commonwealth said, we did not observe any material or substantive impediment inside the tabulation room which might have prevented the resumption of the tabulation process. It is the group's clear view that the robust exchange between the political party agents in the room only occurred when GECOM repeatedly halted the process. The process was constantly being halted by GECOM, not the political parties.
And that is the accurate version of what transpired.
Because
and that's the Commonwealth.
The Wednesday they were supposed to start at 9. We got there, all of us were there before 8:30.
Yes.
And at 8:58, we need to clean the room. I don't think Wednesday the spreadsheet started to be used until 2 p.m. And then it was supposed to be a 24-hour
There was a drastic delay in commencing on the 4th of March.
And the clear thing that comes when you have an election as a returning officer, you know that there's time against you. You're pushing. But there's two things that we got to tie together to understand. Region 4 is geographically closest to Georgetown. It is actually Georgetown is part of Region 4. So the chances of statement, the polls not getting into the hands of the RO is low compared to, let's say, Region 9, where you have to get statement of poll from Gun Strip and all these far areas.
The elections night, 3 p.m., when we constantly got shuttled back and forth from midnight onwards. So it didn't start until 3 p.m. At 6 or so, we had like a 30-minute break.
Yes.
And then we resumed and we continued going. And then there was a break at 9 on the Tuesday again for the next morning.
Yeah.
So there was constant breaks.
I do not know why there is a back and forth. Our laws in the Representation of People Act Section 84 is very clear. The tabulation must be done from statements of poll. It must be done by statements of poll for you to have a final result, for you to have a declaration. What we're going through here is an utter disaster.
Well, I think we've now moved past the use of statements of polls and just calling for a total recount of the region.
Well,
let's see what's in those ballot
I
boxes.
wouldn't say that we have moved past it. We've been forced to jump to, or we have been forced to go past it to jump to a recount.
We were there and then we saw.
Because we have dealt with that. And even when the court has said with the use of statements of poll, you will arrive at your final result. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that is the effect of the judgment by the Chief Justice. We have seen contempt of court, because when we went back even after the court matter on the 12th of March, what did we see? Spreadsheets being used again.
Again. So there's a persistent push by GECOM to stick to the spreadsheet. It's like their Bible, so to speak,
They made two declarations with varying numbers.
with spreadsheets.
And the first one, interestingly, had a signature that doesn't belong there. And then the second one was a whole bunch of different numbers too. People would put out the statement of poll that they had resumed, they collected, and the audio sound behind it is complete opposite numbers. So the public is seeing that GECOM is not trustworthy. A lot of people are being like, why would I vote
They're
again?
absolutely not trustworthy from what we have experienced, what we have seen in GECOM. On the 12th of March, we could have also seen the disgust of the international community as the ambassadors walked away from GECOM, having had enough of what transpired from the 4th of March to the 12th of March. The use of spreadsheet. I was at GECOM on the 12th of March where Mr. Mingo said that his understanding of the court order is that he can use whatever methodology he wants in tabulating and coming to the final result. This is what I would like the public to note. He may use whatever methodology. At the end of the day, the law is clear. You must use your methodology in relation to the statements of poll. Section 84 has a level of transparency that is brought to this process. It gives a level of transparency. You going behind closed doors and using a methodology or whatever you want to say and coming out and then saying, look, I have tabulated from statement to poll without the whole world seeing, without the whole world knowing how you ended up with the numbers you ended up with on a spreadsheet is not transparency, is not in accordance with Section 84.
Yes. So
It is absolutely
Well, that is not, like, that's not what he did. But then we saw that they had an agreement with CARICOM to go to the recount, and then one of the candidates for the PNC decided to block the recount.
Yes, once again, the court is engaged with matters of national interest, and we have had injunctions being granted by the Honorable Justice Holder in relation to the recount being blocked, the agreement that the President, Mr. Granger, and the opposition leader, Mr. Parag, signed on to with CARICOM for a recount has also been blocked.
But what's interesting about this is Granger's claiming this is a private citizen, but she's being represented by Roy Stilford, who is one of their candidates. She also ran in the local government elections both times for Better Hope South Constituency 3 as a constituency candidate and lost on the PNC slate.
Yes.
So, is she really a private citizen?
Well, I see I see a Jekyll and Hyde situation happening here, a good cop, bad cop situation, and I want to tell the nation this. Anybody who's been to a psychop course, and I know myself, and I know Mr. Granger has been to these courses, anybody who's been to a psychop course will know that that is how you operate when you don't want the truth to come out. So we're seeing, on one hand, I'm speaking to CARICOM and I'm saying, oh, I would love to have a recount. I would love to have fair play. I would love these results to be accurate. And then by the flip of a switch, that same identical person with their alter ego comes up and creates a condition whereby they block this entire progressive position. It is a progressive position because both President Granger and Leader of the Opposition, former President Parag, agreed to it. This agreement is blessed by CARICOM. No better person than the chairman of CARICOM. GECOM, unfortunately, as we're seeing, is not signing on to this totally. And they're the ones who are creating a lot of friction. But on whose instruction? And that is the question. On whose instruction is GECOM acting? GECOM is operating as if it's an extension of someone else other than the commission. And we need to ask that question. Whose instruction is GECOM really executing? For example, yesterday, the containers were moved. On whose instruction? Nobody knows who instructed GECOM to do it, but it happened. The commissioners don't know. The political parties don't know. The observers don't know. Nobody knows, but things are happening. So it's like a dark pair of hands is controlling GECOM, and everybody's saying, oh, GECOM is independent. But yet, they're being controlled by these dark pair of hands, these dark forces. And we need to find out what is going on with GECOM. And GECOM needs to come clean.
Yeah. Well,
In the words of my colleague and senior, Mr. Nandalal, in the profession, what we have here and what we're seeing is an incestuous relationship with GECOM and the coalition. Because what you have is Althea Moore, a citizen by the name of Althea Moore, filing on behalf of GECOM against the president. From the morning to the afternoon of the 20th of March, we have seen a candidate for APNU, that is Mr. Roysdale Ford, who in the morning said he's looking in the interest of the APNU AFC. He left the court. By afternoon, he said he was representing Althea Moore. This is a candidate for the APNU AFC, representing the citizen who has filed an action on behalf of GECOM and on behalf of being a citizen, and I suppose GECOM, and who has filed a matter against Mr. Granger, who is the president and the head of the APNU coalition. So what we have here really is an incestuous relationship, and if I may say so, it is an assault. It is an assault on our intelligence, on the Guyanese people intelligence, on the international community's intelligence.
To expand on that, though, because there is something happened on the 12th that clearly established that incestuous relationship. When we went in the morning, all the ambassadors were there. There was the U.S. ambassador, the British High Commission, the Canadian High Commission, the European ambassador, Bruce Goulding from the OAS, and this is the day when the OAS says, finally, we've had enough of this nonsense, and they left. But the reality is, on that morning, when Mr. Mingo came with a new environment and wanted to do a new process, so we said to him, fine. So he said he wanted to start with box number 423, the 423rd statement of poll. We said, fine, let's roll. Can you give us your opening balance, Mr. Mingo? Mr. Mingo says, I don't have that. So we said, but what did we do over all these days? We tabulated and ascertained 421 boxes, but you said 422. We're going to go with it. What did we do? Where are the balances for those 422? He said, well, I don't have it. So then all the different players started to speak, and he said, fine, I'm going to start from scratch, zero. We're going to start this entire process over. Everybody says, well, we're going to be adding some time onto our life, but let's do it. Let's do it clean for Guyana. Then the APNU, or the coalition rep, a reputable young lady from Region 5, stood up and started offering explicits and an attack and how she can stamp people on their chests and all kinds of nonsense.
Wasn't there from the start.
She wasn't there from the start. Mr. Mingo left that room for 2 minutes to take a call, and when he took that call, I don't know who he made that call to or who called him. But when he came back into that room, he started to stamp his hands on the table loudly and says, I shall take control of this process. I am not going back to the start. Imagine, 60 seconds ago or 120 seconds ago, this guy had agreed to go. We didn't tell him to go to the start. He said he wants to go to the start. And then 120 seconds after, he's knocking his hands on the table, 180 degrees changing and saying, I will not go back to the start. I will start at 423 and I will do it my way. I will not give you an opening balance. I shall do this my way. And I have no questions to answers from you. Totally dictatorial. I thought I was in North Korea or something, looking at Mr. Mingo. I was aghast. I mean, the ambassadors them were so tired, so fed up of that nonsense. Everybody get up and left. I mean, because people are not going to tolerate such infantile, childish behavior from an official of such high level. So people left. And this is where the rig started. And then the lady started calling the numbers. For example, she reached to her Stelling. On the SOP had 14 votes for the APNU at Horstelling. Any school child in Guyana knows Horstelling is a PPPC stronghold. 14 votes for the APNU. The lady called 114 votes for the APNU. And the rigging continued. And that was happening.
Well, and let us remind the public, let us not forget in 2015 when we had the general and regional elections, In televised press conferences, Mr. Granger, along with members of his party, said to the media, said to the public, we need the use of statements of polls to verify results. Let us not forget that what we are seeing here today is hypocrisy to the highest.
Yes.
Well, there's the ego and the alter ego. So they were speaking. In 2015, the ego was speaking, and today the alter ego is speaking.
Well, you're seeing a lot of people coming out against them, though, including Dominic Gaston, who yesterday said, this process descended into chaos and disorder on Wednesday, March 4th, resulting in a declaration being made by the returning officer, Mingo, on Thursday, March 5th. This declaration placed the APNU-AFC coalition ahead of the PP opposition by some 59,000 votes in District 4 and by approximately 7,000 votes overall in the general election. There was immediate and widespread rejection of this declaration, based primarily on procedural grounds and lack of transparency. I too have taken a position on the Mingo declaration. I don't buy his numbers. Who vex, vex. So even the president's son-in-law right now is saying,
and a member of the AFC.
And a senior member of the AFC, former minister of the government, is saying that he does not see transparency in this process right now.
As is every right-thinking Guyanese, as is every right-thinking international observer, and the international community on the whole.
Yeah, even the
Any
EU
right-thinking person
the EU just said
knows that this process has been before the world on screen. Everybody can see that there is a lack of transparency. Now you have persons from within the AFC coming out to say that this is what they believe, and I commend him for saying that.
Yes.
I commend him for saying that, because not everybody has the guts to come out and say the right thing.
But one mistake the dark forces, and I will use that word, the dark forces are facing, they did not expect the reaction from the youths of Guyana. They did not understand the powers of social media. Every time they make a rigging mistake, it's on television, it's in Facebook, it's being seen in Washington, D.C., London, Toronto, instantaneously. And that is what is beating them, because they can't put that genie back in the bag.
Point blank, what we have and what we're seeing is a hijacking of the country.
Agreed.
That
agreed.
is what that is.
But you know, there's a third leg of that hijacking, the police.
Yes.
Well, yes, I am actually glad that you brought that up, because just today I saw the president. He felt compelled to release a statement condemning the acts of violence in relation to a butcher shop or so in Berbice, in Region 6. I will categorically state this. The PPPC also condemns any acts of violence. That is first. Secondly, I would like Mr. Granger to also acknowledge and condemn when his supporters verbally abused the EU ambassador at the barriers outside of GECOM on the 12th of March, in the presence of all and sundry on the road.
Well, the people.
I wish, not only that, I wish Mr. Granger would also condemn the verbal abuse on myself and my comrades on the night of the 13th of March, outside of GECOM headquarters. We were not only verbally, but we were almost physically abused. In my presence, the media was abused, verbally as well. And so just as how Mr. Granger feels compelled to come out and say that, and it's good that he condemns acts of violence, but also condemn for others that has been happening in relation to other political parties, to Mr. Jonathan Yearwood, to Mr. Hines, who were all verbally and physically attacked while they were stating their position as it relates to democracy. As it also relates to the Guyana Police Force, Mr. Granger has called on Guyana Police Force to maintain order of society, rule of law and order in society, and also to carry out investigations as needed in relation to these acts, as he claims in Region 6. Just as well, I will ask Mr. Granger to feel compelled to call on the Guyana Police Force to condemn all acts of violence or intimidation upon other party members, upon the media, and those persons who are being attacked, and I will say this, by his supporters. The police are standing there, were standing there on the 13th of March looking on, and not one word or not one movement came from the police to protect us as citizens of Guyana.
I got 3 instances where the police have failed this nation. One, even today, Commissioner Robeson-Ben had a cause to write to the Commissioner of Police on the abuses he has been inflicted upon him. For several days, not just one occasion, he got attacked by police in the convention center where he fell, injured his arm, but only on the night when we were in GECOM, I remember with my own eyes because I was there, he asked a certain police officer, I wouldn't call his name, beginning with A, and the police officer says, you got to walk there at your own risk. This is a commissioner of GECOM, and he said, you got to go out there at your own risk. So basically, Mr. Robeson-Ben was a prisoner in the confines of GECOM and couldn't get out. The second thing I saw on that night was 2 Commonwealth observers were trapped by closer to the Ministry of Finance. And these people were saying, using explicits and racial slurs against these people, saying you so-and-so need to get out of Guyana. And they were using racial words. These were all people wearing green APNU AFC shirt. The police were right there. The police did nothing. When myself and Comrade Priya and a couple others went with a vehicle to extract Sonia from GECOM, you know what they did? They bricked our vehicles. The police were right there, and they did nothing. So there's so many acts of violence that are happening constantly during this election season against people who are not seen as AP and UAFC supporters, and people who are fighting for justice, fighting for the accurate and transparent tabulation of the results. And the problem is, Mr. Granger, at not one day has called on his supporters to stop this violent action. The violence that are happening in Guyana today is being conducted by the APNU AFC supporters. No one else. No one else. And that is a fact.
Well, PP, the People's Progressive Party actually released a press statement in relation to the self-serving and sterile statement from President Granger, and it states, part of it I'll just read. Every rational person can see through this inept facade. Mr. Granger has lost all credibility in the eyes of the objective public. These statements of his irritate more than inform. Everyone knows the truth. He can still redeem himself. All Mr. Granger has to do is instruct his commissioners at GECOM to proceed with the recount, a unanimous decision already made by GECOM on the 15th day of March, and instructed Yulita Moore and his party candidate to withdraw her High Court case and let the recount of the ballot begin. He can also make his party statements of poll public, as the People's Progressive Party Civic has done, so the world can see transparently whether his party has won the elections. It is but his only saving grace.
And there's one last example I want to raise about police violence. The last night, a group of young, mainly boys, were there, young candidates from PPP and all the small parties. I saw the video from Gerald Ford from TNM, a young, I think he's a prime ministerial candidate of the TNM, as they were leaving the room. And on that video, I saw young boys mainly, young people, let me put it that way. Young people mainly.
A little bit over 30.
Yeah, young people mainly who, the only arm they had was a cell phone with a camera on. They had no guns, they had no knives, they had nothing. Just a cell phone with a camera. And guess who came into that building to eject them? Heavily armed tactical service unit policemen with machine guns and with clear instructions to arrest them if they resist being ejected out of the building. The only thing those young people were fighting for was this, that the statement of polls can remain available to independent eyes. They weren't looking to invade GECOM. They never left that tabulation room. That place has 3 different floors. They're not interested in the other floors or other rooms or other GECOM operation. All they wanted to do is stay in the tabulation room to keep an independent eye on those statement of polls to prevent GECOM from tampering with them. But what GECOM did, GECOM brought heavily armed tactical service unit people and ejected those young people. And the very same night, the statement of polls disappeared. And Guyana has not seen it again.
That was Thursday.
Those statement of polls are gone.
In relation, Nalinie, to your excerpt on the recount, again, let us not forget that Madam Chairperson undertook to the court and to the public via the media that if a request is put in for a recount will be granted. Madam Chairperson, as a citizen of Guyana, I am calling on you, and I'm saying this, that having undertaken to do that, you are therefore obligated to the Guyanese people in coming out to say what is your position in relation to that undertaking.
Yeah, why is she still so silent?
You are silent. You have undertaken to the court. You have undertaken to the Guyanese people to have a recount. In the interest of democracy, I am respectfully asking that you honor your obligation of coming out and doing away with your silence and letting the people of Guyana know what is your position as it relates to that undertaking.
But the clear question that I have on my mind to Madam Chair is, are you or are you not part of the dark forces? And your actions will determine, in the eyes of the public, whether you are part and parcel of this machination to steal an elections from the people of Guyana.
Well, history will remember, right?
Well, history will. I mean, history, as you know, before 1992, a group of people used to determinedly, unabashedly cheat this nation of results by stuffing ballot boxes, by using phantom voters in overseas locations like Manchester, England. There was a case where there was two horses on a field in Manchester called Dolly and Olga, and they voted in the Guyanese election. This is not a joke. This is how the PNC did it. Two horses voted in the Guyana elections in 1985, called Dolly and Olga. And this is the challenge. I mean,
multiple homes where these people didn't exist, that were registered and
so in 2020, this modus operandi continues, and the PNC is all around this dastardly act of trying to steal an elections in region number 4.
In 85, there wasn't counting at the polls. In 1992, that became a thing where votes were counted at the polls, statement of polls were created, and then were transported securely, and then the process of tabulating these votes.
But did anybody see something happening in Monrepo on elections night? Well, not night, in the afternoon of elections day. There was a determined attempt to suppress voters in Monrepo. Yes. A bunch of guys came from a neighboring village who were clearly APNU AFC supporters, and they turned up at the Monrepo school, and they tried to deny women mainly from voting. Well, those women just watched them, and they just put their heads straight, and they stood their ground. And that is the kind of fire and determination that has us in a position whereby we know that the APNU AFC is struggling to come to the truth.
Right now we are literally fighting to continue to live in a democratic state.
And we keep asking ourselves a very rhetorical question. If you are certain that you have won the elections, APNU AFC, what is the problem with going ahead with a recount? What is the problem of bringing transparency to the table?
Yeah, because the EU
that is a rhetorical question for most Guyanese at this point in time.
Our observer mission calls to complete the electoral process in a credible and transparent way. The European Union remains engaged in Guyana and firmly determined to support all efforts to this end. Only credible and transparent counting can produce legitimate results.
I don't know why the APNU is so much against one man, one vote. I don't know what is their problem.
I say we count the votes. We open every ballot box. We stream it. We have enough access.
And before I leave this program, without saying this, I commend all of our comrades and our colleagues who are so vigilantly looking after our containers. Who has given up 75 to 90% of their life at these couple
At
days.
at this point, it's
And
not
it's-
just party people, not PPP,
Yes.
not
It's
members of
so
any parties.
many young
I actually
people.
got a message from a friend who
And
is
it's so many persons, and thank you
non-political.
to all of the Guyanese,
she's taking
all
a
of our
shift.
citizens who are coming out here and taking a stand on democracy in giving up their time, their effort to watch our containers, to
Yeah.
ensure that our ballots, to ensure that our votes count.
I
the
just
end
got a
of the
text on my way here. A group of 5 friends from sixth form in Queen's College text me to say they want to come out and guard box today. Now, I don't even know if they can vote or not, but they want to guard containers. The reality is, Guyana has basically, and especially, I want to give credit to the young people, because if it wasn't for their spirit, their energy, people like me would have been a bit tired by now. But seeing how they are motivated and committed to the philosophy of one man, one vote, it energizes everyone. And the world has seen this, and we got to understand the third most powerful man in the world, the Secretary of State of the United States, have also gotten this message. He's actually attached a word called fraud.
Yes.
Fraud
Electoral.
to what has happened
But
there.
what we have been seeing, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Let's not go around and come around every time. Yes, we are supposed to be politically correct. But what we have witnessed with our own eyes and as citizens of Guyana, regardless of if we're candidates, as Guyanese, what we have witnessed is electoral fraud. And as Cesar, you would have said earlier, this is not just politics anymore. This is just a strategy now, strategies after strategies of getting to the end game of being sworn in.
Sonia, doesn't electoral fraud carry strict penalties in the eyes of the law?
It carries strict penalties, but aside from that, it also carries heavy sanctions from the international community. And let's talk about that, because I actually saw somebody who clearly did not think before they put a post. They said Mr. Jagdeo wants sanctions for Guyana as if he doesn't live in Guyana. This is what I would say to that person. It is not a matter of if Mr. Jagdeo wants sanctions for this country, and I will definitely say he does not want sanctions for this country because they demitted office in 2015 so that the Guyanese people could enjoy a life of comfort, nonetheless. That aside, again, it's not what Mr. Jagdeo wants. It is inevitable that if a president is sworn in, or this president is sworn in on results that are not credible, sanctions will come. And again, as I saw a clip today from Mr. Granger in 2015, detailing what those sanctions will be, who they will affect, and how they will affect. And most importantly, the entire of Guyana will be affected by sanctions. So this is a man who knows exactly what sanctions will do to this country. And they continue to go with their strategies to an end game of being sworn in, knowing that the entire of Guyana will go down.
Everything he knew before 2015, he's forgotten, because he seemed to knew that then too, the three buzzwords to then turn two, and then 2 years ago, that was math he did not know existed.
But let me add a little bit to the sanction, because this is where we get down to the nuts and bolts and the bread and butter of sanctions.
Yeah.
The first thing that will happen, and Guyana must know this, is that the fuel supply to this country will dry up. So we will return to the days where we'll have to line up at gas station for 2 days to get a tank of gas, because the flow, we wouldn't have enough access to foreign currency to buy fuel. And the reason for that is our exports will not be acceptable in countries like the European Union, England, America, Canada, even the Caribbean, who's democratic. And we export most of our sugar to America and England, right? So that money will dry up. The oil cash that they're boasting about will be frozen in Washington, D.C. or New York, wherever it's situated. So the challenge is they do not understand, or they're misleading the people. Sanctions will cause huge amount of shortages. And let me give you a real example. The panic buying and the shortage is already here. I was speaking to the owner of a supermarket, and he basically was saying that he don't know when he's going to get his next container. I mean, it's a double whammy, yes, the Corona plus the sanctions, the incoming sanctions, but he doesn't know when he's going to get his next container. And he said people are panic buying things like toilet paper and so forth. People are buying it by the bales when they used to buy a few rolls before. So the question is, we're already running out of stocks. And this country is going to be in a major, major problem. But the other thing that is happening over the last 3 weeks, close to 15,000 Guyanese have been told 3 things. One, we can't continue to pay you full salary, so we're going to put you on part-time pay. In the case of some of the hotels and leisure industry side, people have literally been sent home. And thirdly, nobody's hiring right now. So this country is on a lockdown economically. And the pain is already starting to hit the people. Now, this is not because of Mr. Jagdeo. Mr. Jagdeo wants a democratic results. He wants a transparent process like the whole world. This is because of Mr. David Arthur Granger. He's the one who has the power, the authority to issue directional statements. I am convinced if Mr. Granger said tomorrow, GECOM, let's do this count, they will do the count. But he's just messing with this nation in, again, the Jekyll and the Hyde mentality. Jekyll and Hyde.
His commissioners just need to go there and say, let's do the recount. Our commissioners will say the same. Claudia Singh will have no choice but to agree. He asked Julie Tamor to pull her case back, and that's it. We have the recount. We start the process.
There is time to do the right thing.
Yeah.
There is time to do the right thing. And if I may mention, in addition to what Say said, as it relates to what sanctions will come, we will have personal sanctions, we will have sanctions on the country. But just this morning, and as I saw the Department of Information is putting out that we have received our first $55 million in oil. Let me just say that the governor of the Bank of Guyana issued a statement today that said this money will not be accessed by the government. It cannot be accessed by the government. Until there is a new government. Well, there is no government at the moment. Yes. There is just a president.
We just have an executive.
It will not be accessed, and that is how it will continue if we have a president who is sworn in, a government who is formulated upon results that are not credible.
But you know, you're talking about the Bank of Guyana. Do you know, Guyana, that this Granger administration, since it came into office, has run up an overdraft in the public deposit? It's like anybody's checking account. The nation also has a checking account called the public deposit. And he's run up an overdraft. The PPPC left him close to $20 billion in real cash. He spent out all of that $20 billion and ran up an overdraft, running up to $83 billion as of March 3rd. The question is, that's about $400 million in debt. He's just added to the book by just spending.
That's just public deposits.
Yes, that's just
the gold reserve.
Gold reserves are down to the lowest level in 20 years.
Yeah, every reserve you look at, international fund, all our funds are dried up, spent out, and then look at various ministries and public offices. They all are in debt too. All their funds.
He's drained the Forestry Commission, drained the Geologies and Mines Commission. All these organizations are now running on bare bones cash because all the money is gone, spent. Can you imagine on dietary needs of this country went up by $2 billion under the Granger administration? $2 billion. What are these people, or what were these people eating in 2019? I do not understand.
I don't think we need to understand at this point what they were eating. What we need to get them to do is come out and say if they're still interested in this recount, because that's what we want at this point.
Yes, they owe the public, they owe the Guyanese people.
They're pausing the country.
They are not only pausing the country, but the country is going to go slam dunk onto the ground. That's just how
we're heading in that direction.
Any true leader will never want to see the citizens of his nation go down.
This reminds me of things like Saddam and Gaddafi and the one from Korea, was his name, Kim Jong-il. This is how these guys operate.
I don't see it being in the name. I don't see it being
Those
in the name
are all
of power.
dictatorships.
I can't see it being in the name of power, because if you are going to be sanctioned, and if it is that you will have to dry up all that you have here, then there is no power. There is nothing to act on power.
Yeah. So at this point, it's just an ego thing, and we need Mr. Granger to come out and say, "Are you still interested in a recount? If you are, this is what you do." And tell Julie Tamor pull her case. Get your commissioners to ask for a recount, and we we go to it. We get the process started. It's a few days. It'll take like about 15 days.
And
maybe.
CARICOM says they're ready to
Yeah.
return to supervise the process because
Not only
GECOM is now not a credible
We have the
force.
Carter Center, we have OAS, we have everybody who will
Ready
be
to
on
come
board.
back. But GECOM is not a credible force to do this recount. It has to be done in a supervised environment where the independent observers can see them.
Yeah.
Because we were able, the PPP was very clear about the rigging, but it was also done in front of other eyes. So when we didn't have to speak, when you look at the Commonwealth statement, they said it all. The world read that. 54 countries are represented by the Commonwealth between the Commonwealth and the
54
OS.
democratic
Countries. Between the Commonwealth and the OS is 100 countries of the world are saying, Mr. Granger, you're wrong. GECOM, you're wrong. You have not tabulated the result in a credible environment. Get it right. That is what you need to do.
That's all we want is a credible tabulation of District 4's results. That is all we're asking for today.
That is right. That is all everybody.
I don't think
We've
this is
had-
an unreasonable request.
It can't be an unreasonable.
not
And it is
Not
also
unreasonable.
it is also provided for in our laws.
Not
All we're asking
unreasonable.
is that you
Follow the
obey the
law.
law.
And it's not even a full, it's not even like a recount in the sense of we counting back things that have been counted, because some of these boxes actually haven't been verified accurately. So, because I think anything before, after the Wednesday is
Before
not
and
accurate. So,
It's a situation that I never thought I would have seen. I actually read about rigged elections in Guyana. I was here in '85 and old enough to understand, but I did not feel it because it was done in a shady way. But this one was done on TV.
Yeah.
I don't understand how infantile and stupid you can get to rig an elections on TV.
no, I think the things we saw, if you weren't in the room to see it, it would have been far-fetched to believe it. Because, like, I've read about all these
I don't
things.
think it would have been far-fetched anymore because what we have seen from the 4th of March and every single day thereafter.
No, I think if I'm
has
like
been-
an outside person just looking in and like reading, and be like, okay, maybe they're exaggerating.
No,
a
we've
little.
had a
But
lot.
we have not.
Up
Some
to this
of
point,
these
we've had a lot of
experiences
Guyanese who've been looking in and they understand
Yeah.
fully well what is happening and
No,
they're now on
It
board
thanks
because
for social media. Like if you're just
and
reading
they're
it,
on
it'd
board
be like,
because of the fact that these people genuinely believe in democracy and what
Yes.
we're seeing in 2020 is a hijacking of a nation.
in the 21st century, we are
Yes.
fighting to live in a democratic state. How is that real?
Like, remember the
How?
night you were there? Remember the
Yeah.
night when we had what's called this thing again? Flash drive gate.
Yeah.
When we had flash drive gate in
That
Hartfield
was
Street,
the Wednesday night.
there were like 20 feeds going live all over Facebook, blasting away. Flash drive gate going on. This guy is trying to rig the elections,
it from
and
every angle.
everybody was.
Being like, "Look,
And I was
you're
like,
there. Why are you not
what is
dead?"
what is wrong with these people? There's 20 feeds going all over the world, telling the world
This
this
is
guy
what's
is
happening.
messing with a flash drive,
This is who it is.
doctoring results. And the common sense thing to do was to pull yourself back into the realms of the law and get yourself right.
Yeah.
But they continue to push and push further and further away from the law. GECOM has been hijacked by a gang of 10. And this gang of 10 is not answerable to the GECOM Commission. They're answerable to forces outside of GECOM. And that is what the linkage is being established.
Yes, and it is my personal opinion, as with many other persons, that although Mr. Granger is coming out with statement after statement, and again, it's an attack on our intelligence, to tell us that GECOM is an independent body. GECOM is supposed to be an independent body, but in this particular case, GECOM is not
It's
acting
not at all.
independently.
I think that is just very despicable because GECOM is supposed to be who we trust to run our elections. We're supposed to have local government come next year. I don't think anyone I know will want to vote.
Well,
if
after
it's the
this,
same GECOM.
and if this is to go down again to an end game where we will have no recount and we have a president sworn in on results that are not credible, then it makes no sense to have elections, and we will never have free and fair elections in Guyana ever again. We will never have that because you will have one institution that wishes to deal however they feel like dealing with the elections, and they will have the entire nation at their in their hands.
Well, they get to pick who wins what, right? Well, we're just asking right now is for a total recount. Everyone
We're
make that
calling on all
commitment.
right-thinking Guyanese to come out and voice your opinion as it relates to the recount, because we are most certain that you want to see the democratic process be
Yeah.
carried through.
There's a lot of people
And-
reaching out.
Yes.
I
And we
also,
thank-
yeah. right.
And we thank all of the Guyanese that have been with us throughout these days in ensuring that we can still do the right thing.
Yeah, I also want to call on Guyana to join some of us on the watch parties in the evenings, during the days, if you have any free time. One body, it helps. It builds strength. It helps us to camaraderie and build that strength to prove to GECOM that Guyana is serious about one man, one vote. And the bottom line is, I want to again also thank Guyana for doing a couple of things, remaining peaceful. It is extremely important that all of Guyana watch the newsfeed of Dr. Parag and Dr. Irfan Ali. They're giving daily interviews, giving direction on how Guyana must address this situation and how we apply our minds to it. Please don't go and get violent. There is no need for violence at this time. If we get violent, we will empower Mr. Granger. We'll make him stronger. This is the time to be smart. Let's beat him at this chess game. This is a chess game he started, but we will win it. That's the bottom line. We will win it. But the bottom line is, listen, let's be guided, let's act maturely, and let's be disciplined. And every day I noticed Dr. Jagdeo or Dr. Ali are putting out a statement. Let's listen to those statements because they're filled with guidance on what to do the next day.
They're advising everyone right now is to stay home, stay safe. So let us know if you want to reach out and help, because we are doing a shift system to watch the containers, but we have to remember there is a health pandemic as well.
Yes.
So we have to stay healthy and stay
Let's
safe.
stay within the guidelines of the pandemic, but also let our voices be heard as it relates to our democracy.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That was a paid program, and the views and opinions expressed were those of the host and other speakers and do not reflect the views and opinions of TVG Channel 28.